Alright, today we're creating isomorphic toggle button right in Figma. Let's get right into it.
I have simplified the process of steps that I'm going to show you. There are three rectangles that I used to achieve this, what you're seeing here. I'm going to take you step by step in a simplified way. So the first thing you're going to do is to click out on your keyboard and draw a rectangle. Don't worry, let's just change the color first so you can see what you're doing. So this rectangle, I'm going to give it a width of 1192, alright? So, and I'm also going to give it a height of 600. So I'm going to be using this measurement so that you can see what I'm doing, right? Then try to use the measurement according to your design. For the corner radius, I'm going to give it as much as a 400, and I think that's good. So let's go to find the fill page. So I'm going to give it a fill page of 525050, and this is it, right? So now the next thing we are going to do is to go to stroke. I'm going to click on the plus sign to add the stroke, and I'm going to change the stroke to a radial. Okay, so this is the stroke. Now I'm going to have so many strokes, and I'm going to work on the effect here. So the first one rather, I'm going to give it a color first. This is the first effect that goes on here. I'm going to give it a color of 787878. That's the first color. While the second one, I'm going to give it a color of, let's say, D0D030. So that is it. Let's add a different order to it, because that's what is going to give us the shade we're actually looking for. So far, this one, so the first one, let's give it a color of B6, B5, B5. You can go ahead, and once you're done learning this whole thing, and you can go ahead and try out or practice on your own. So find out what works for you. I mean, this is really what works for me. So let's go over to the second one. I gave it a color white, that's FFFFFF. Then the last one, we're going to give it a 7575. So what I'm going to do to this stroke section here, I'm going to click the drop down, and I'm going to select center. Then I'm going to give it a width of 70, no, all right, 90. Now you can see what we're doing, but let's try to position this well. Yeah, yes, now it's okay. And try to play around it probably to get what you want, but this is really what I want here. This is what I want to achieve. Now the reason why it's having this line going on is because the colors that I have in between them, in the why this is actually not coming out where they aren't stretched, I mean the opacity. So I'm going to stretch it up to 100%. The tree, I'll do the same for the right, for all of them, right? Let's try to find a better position for this. So yeah, I think this is better off. Okay, this is perfect. The next thing we are going to give to this rectangle here is to go to effect. For the effect, I click on the drop down, and I'm going to change this to inner shadow. Then I'm going to come here and I'll click effect section. So for this white side, I'm going to leave it to 0. For the X side, I'm going to leave it at 7, right? Then the blur, I'm going to give it as much as 25%. So for the spread, I'm going to give it 100%. Yeah, let's make it 25%, right? So what I was trying to create was a depth. I'm going to leave it like that. Yeah, so I wanted it to be this way. What I did was I created like a depth in this section. This middle section here looks like it's something that is inside the outer section, right? So that is the reason for the effect that you saw. Here is the next thing to do. The next thing is to create the second rectangle. Right here, I'm just going to use this to create like a border around the rectangle, to create like a border around the first rectangle. So you're going to click R on your keyboard, and then you draw down your rectangle, I mean your second rectangle. So I'm going to give it a width of 1278. That's for the width, and for the height I'm going to give it as much as 690. Don't worry, I'm going to make adjustments once I put. So I'm gonna make adjustment when I put in the shape there. So what is going to give me is a double line effect, is stroke. I'm going to click on the plus sign here beside stroke, and I'm going to give it a linear stroke, right? So far, the one I'm going to change the color to is 087C7C. While the second one, I'm going to change the color to EA. So that's it for now. So the opacity for the first one remains at 0, while the second one remains at 100. The weight of the stroke, I'm going to give it as much as a 10. Another thing is to round the corner radius rather up to 400. Let's close out the fill. So it's going to give me this. I'm going to place on this rectangle that makes it look like a border on it. So I'm going to increase it a little bit so as to fit in into this rectangle. Yeah, that's it. This looks perfect. All right, I think we've gotten what we want. So for the so that is it. So we're going to click R on our keyboard for the third rectangle. I'm going to give it a width of 1100, and then for the height we are going to give it as much as 511. So it's not going to have a fill. What I'm going to do is to give it a stroke, right? I'm going to click on the stroke, and I'm going to get to change the color to 08080, and I'm going to leave the stroke to be centered. Going to click on center, then I'm going to give it as much as a 6. All right, let's round the corner as much as 400. I'm trying to create more depth around inside this place here, around this section. I wanted to be like a go inside effect. I want to give you more depth. I will take this shape I created and place it here, but I'm going to go ahead and close this fill color around it, and this is what it looks like. Yeah, it's giving us that depth that we actually wanting to go ahead. So let's go ahead and create this small button here. So you're going to click O on your button, and you're going to hold the shift button and drag to draw this circle here. So we're going to give the two sides a height of 428, right? So I'm going to give it a different fill color. I'm going to give it a white fill color. Also, let's make it linear. Okay, so the first one we're going to give it a fill of 808080. So for the second one, I'm going to give it as much as a white color, that's FFFFF. So let's go and give it another effect. We click on the stroke button. So for the stroke effect, I'm going to give it a linear effect. Also for the first color, I'm going to give it as much as a white. Yeah, trying to adjust this a little bit. Then the second color, I'm going to give it as much as A5. Yeah, so the linear is inside, it's not going to be outside, and we're going to give it as much as a 30, right? Yes. Yeah, it has given us that depth we're actually looking for, a button with so much depth in it. So we close up. We are going to do more for this beautiful circle here. We're going to create an effect for it. So for the X, we are going to give it a 10. Then for the Y axis, we're going to give it a 50. Then for the blur, we're going to give it as much as 25. For the spread, we're going to leave it at 0. Why for the color, the fill, we're going to give it still going to leave it as white, as black rather, and give it 100%. And then we're going to add another stroke to it. For the x-axis, we're going to give it a 0, while for the y-axis we're going to give it a 74. Then for the blur axis, we are going to give it 100. For the spread, we are going to give it a 5. Then for the color, we are going to increase the opacity to 45%. Yeah, I think this is better. So we're going to place of so our button is ready. So you have to place it into the three rectangle you've created. Then let's create a text on it. Click on T on your keyboard and then type off. Then for this off, we are going to give it a bit of a design. So we're going to reduce the font. So for this one, we're going to give it some effects. You click on the effect button. So let's go to effect and give it a drop shadow. So let's go to the effect and give it a drop shadow. We're going to give it an inner shadow. So let's change the x axis to be 3 and the y axis to be 7. Then for the blur, we're going to give it as much as 6. For the spread, we are going to leave it at 0. Then the color, we are going to give it a white, and we'll increase the opacity to 50%. So that is it for that. So I think let's just reduce the opacity to 45. It's better. So we're going to close this up. All right, so let's try this again. Let's give it another effect to make it look thicker. So for the x-axis, we're going to give it a 94. Sorry, we're going to give it a 0. While the y-axis, we're going to give it a 94. Then for the blur, we're going to give it a 119. We're going to leave the spread at 0 and then increase the opacity of the color to 45%. This is definitely okay. So that is it. So we're going to like adjust the sizing so as to fit in properly to our rectangle. So this is what it looks like. So you can see the button is working perfectly. The text is fitting in properly right into our rectangle. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to create the on button. So we're going to duplicate the off and adjust the text to on. So we're going to give it a few color of green. Yeah, this is better. You can copy out the color codes right from my designs. So we have to click on the frame because you cannot prototype without giving it a frame. But before then, we are going to highlight the rectangle, the button, the on button and the off button rather, and we are going to group them. We're going to give it a group selection, and then we're going to add a frame to it, and we're going to close up the view of the frame. So this is it. So what next we're going to do is to the on button that we have, and this button and the off text. So yeah, so what next we are going to do, I'm going to select the three of them. I'm going to create a group on it and also position this very well. So I want the on button to be inside the frame but not actually showing on this rectangle. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to duplicate this so I'll be able to create the on button itself. So you're going to hold on to your frame and then you duplicate. So I'm going to shift this off key out of the rectangle but it's still inside the frame, and then I'm going to adjust the circle and bring in my on button. So it's going to be like a click on and off button. So here is my on button. So I'm going to click on both frames and I'm going to go to create component sets so I can be able to prototype it. So here is it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to adjust this button more like adjusting the on button to give it a space, and I'm going to prototype this, click on this and drag it down to the on button. So I'm going to create a frame because without a frame you cannot be able to display your designs, or you'll not be able to preview your design. So this is it. This is what the the design looks like. Oh, we're going to do justice to this because I did not prototype the on button back to the off button, so I have done that. This is what it looks like. So this is what my toggle. So this is how to create a skeuomorphic toggle button on Figma. So for this green effect I gave it, probably I will show you in my next design. So this is that for skeuomorphic design. Funny enough, this is my first voiceover. I'm open for corrections. Thank you.